Everything in my smart home now runs on this. I used to have hubs, bridges and random boxes everywhere. Usually I'm building smart switches and IR controllers, but now I wanted to see if I could replace everything with just one tiny server. My goal was simple: replace all the chaos with just one box. But is this actually better, or did I just make everything worse? And did I even manage to get all my devices working? Before we begin, I would like to thank IceWhale for sponsoring this video. They sent me their ZimaBoard 2, which I'll be using for this project. Having all these different hubs and bridges makes everything difficult to manage. And if something stops working, especially after a power outage, there's always one or two devices that just won't come back online by itself. I want to reduce the complexity by moving everything to one box. But with this many devices around the house, I'm not sure if one box can handle it all. Let's start with the hardware. The ZimaBoard 2 is basically a tiny x86 server. It comes with 32 or 64 GB of built-in storage and either 8 or 16 GB of memory. I also received their starter bundle, which includes an NVMe adapter, a 2-bay drive rack, plus HDMI and Ethernet cables. If you want to check it out, I'll put a link in the description. For Zigbee connectivity, I'll also be using this Sonoff USB dongle. That should be all the hardware we need. Home Assistant is the base software, but I'll also install N8N to build more advanced automations. So now I need to decide which operating system to run. Proxmox is a tempting option. It lets you run everything as virtual machines or containers. But the ZimaBoard 2 actually comes with its own operating system, ZimaOS, which is supposed to work really well out of the box. I'll start with that and see if it can handle everything I need. After booting the device and clicking through a quick setup, I'm ready to start installing what I need. Home Assistant is pretty straightforward. It installs directly from the built-in App Store. I didn't expect to find N8N in there as well, but it was, so just as quick and easy to install. I have no more excuses not to start moving everything over. My current Home Assistant setup is running on an old, unstable Mac Mini. I didn't have that many devices there, so moving them over was actually pretty quick. That's one already done, and next up is the IKEA hub. Resetting bulbs is done by turning the power on and off 6 times in a row, and they quickly show up in Home Assistant when I scan for new devices. I wasn't sure the IKEA roller blinds would even work, but they appeared right away and worked perfectly. I've had quite a few issues with this hub over the years, but after reprogramming around 25 bulbs and switches, this hub is now ready to be retired. With 2 out of 4 done, I moved on to the Philips Hue setup. Adding the bulbs was simple enough, aside from a few that were a bit tricky to reach. But the dimmer switches were a bit more interesting. After pairing, they don't actually do anything by default, so I had to capture the set HA events and create automations based on those. You can do this through the interface, but I just pasted the events into ChatGPT and it generated the automation for me. Then I pasted it in using the edit YAML function. In my old setup, I actually had to run Homebridge on a Raspberry Pi just to make those switches work with my IKEA lights. So even with a bit more setup here, this is already a much cleaner solution. And with everything now migrated from the Hue hub, I also no longer need Homebridge. With all 4 hubs migrated, let's take a look at how everything is connected. This Home Assistant feature is actually pretty cool. You can visualize your entire Zigbee network. Each dot represents a device, and you can see how everything is connected together. Devices like plugs and bulbs are always powered, so they act as routers and extend the network, while switches and battery-powered sensors depend on those routers to stay connected. It routes automatically, but you can still influence how the network behaves. By adding a few smart plugs around the house, you give the network a better path to reach distant devices, making the whole network more reliable. This was my old setup, and now everything runs on this. That's over 100 devices running from one box. I can customize every single button, like this one by the stairs, which turns off the entire house when I go to bed. And if the device were to suddenly lose its power, everything is back up and running in less than 45 seconds. This is where the real fun begins. With N8N, you can connect your home to the world around us. Let me show you a couple of examples. The first one is pretty simple. It pulls stats for my channel from YouTube every hour. Things like subscribers, views and video count. And sends everything straight into Home Assistant using MQTT behind the scenes. So now I can track channel growth right alongside everything else in my house. But the second automation is where things get a bit more interesting. Every morning at 7 AM, I get a report on what our cat has been up to during the night. It pulls data from Home Assistant, tracks when my cat goes in and out, calculates how long he's been outside, and even grabs the weather for that night. Instead of just showing boring raw data, it sends everything to OpenAI, which turns it into a summary, and we get a simple, human-readable update like this one. Leo went outside 3 times last night, spending a total of 6.5 hours out in dry weather. With the temperature dropping from around 10 to 5 degrees, it was likely a comfortable night for him to explore. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface with this, so if you have any ideas for what else this could be used for, please let me know in the comments. I now have over 100 devices running from a single system. Everything is stable, more flexible and much easier to manage. Having everything in one place makes a huge difference, especially when it comes to automations and integrations. Now you might be thinking, why not just use a Raspberry Pi? Isn't that a cheaper option? But Raspberry Pis have been creeping up in price for years, and once you match the specs, the price is actually near identical. And unless you specifically need GPIO, this gives you a few advantages. You get a PCIe slot, which means you can expand it with high-speed storage, networking, or even a GPU. You also get dual 2.5 gigabit Ethernet and 2 serial auto ports for storage, which makes it a great base for something like a NAS. For me, it replaced 4 separate systems and made everything a lot simpler. On this channel, I combine 3D printing, electronics and software to make functional tools and smart home devices. Subscribe if you want to see more of that. Thanks for watching.